This video will show you how to configure the paper size for a printed exam, how to set the text size, and the margin size, and how to print the exam. It will not show you how to set the title page and header text. See our other video, Setting the Title Page and Header Text for a Printed Exam, for this information. When we use the settings to adjust the paper sizing for a printed exam, we usually need to do it only one time, as all future exam generations will retain the same settings. You may have to make small adjustments if you change your computer or your printer model. In our demo, we will use the Google Chrome browser. This is the recommended browser. Other browsers will also work, but there may be small differences in the controls and outputs that you may need to experiment with. Here we have already logged in, and we proceed to generate an exam, on which we will test our paper sizing. We do not need to select any particular settings for this exam, because we will not be saving it. It is only to create some output on which we will test our settings. Click the exam paper icon. The exam opens in a new tab on the browser. This allows us to switch back and forth between the software settings page and the exam output page. We can see how the exam paper will look when it is printed by selecting Print from the browser controls. Scroll through the exam. Check that none of the questions are orphaned on a page, all by itself. This would indicate that the page height is set too high. Check also that there is not too much white space at the bottom of each page. This would indicate that the page height is set too low. In the More Settings section of the browser's print controls, you can hide the header and footer text that the browser automatically inserts into the top and bottom margins, and you can hide the background graphics if you do not want the blue shading in the header background. Switch the view to the main QBgenerator tab and select the settings from the top menu. We will be working with these three settings: the page height, the page width, and the text size. The text size should normally be left at 14 pixels. This works very well for most applications. If you are generating exams for visually impaired examinees, you can increase the text size. As demonstration, we will show you what happens to the output when we increase the page height. You can make small adjustments to the page height using the thumb wheel, or you can type the number of pixels directly into the window. Do not forget to save the changes you make. Switch back to the Exam Output tab. Click the refresh icon to let the changes take effect. You may see no change initially. So select the Print tool again. Now you can see that one of the questions has moved to the next page. It is orphaned, all by itself. This is because the page height is set bigger than it is in reality. Note that the software will never split a question across two pages. It will always try to fit the entire question onto the bottom of the page, but if there is insufficient space for it, it will start a new page for the last question. We close the print preview screen and switch back to the Settings tab. Now we will set a low page height, just to show you the effect. Again, refresh the exam output page, and select the print preview screen. Now you see that there is excessive white space at the bottom of each page. Enough white space, in fact, to fit an entire question from the next page. This is because we have set the page height lower than it is in reality. We restore the page height back to 900 pixels, and in the exam output, we find the questions fit neatly onto the page. It is good to allow a little white space to allow some tolerance. We now turn to the page width. Adjusting the page width will have different effects on the exam output, depending on the browser you use, and also on the printer that you select for the output. For example, if we decrease the page width here, and switch to the exam output view, after refreshing the page and selecting the print preview, we see that the right side of the text is now further from the margin. However, if we increase the page width, and after refreshing the exam output and viewing the print preview, we see that the browser has utilized the full width of the page, but has reduced the text size in order to keep all the text on the page. This will of course also affect the text height. If we switch to a different browser, for example, Firefox browser as shown here, then we see that the same page width setting has cropped off some of the text on the right side. We need to reduce the page width a little, to bring the missing text back into the visible page. However, if we switch the printer output, the browser will reduce the text size in order to keep all the text on the page. Try experimenting with your own installation and see what result you get. We will now look at some of the other page formatting tools that are included with your browser. In the print preview screen, you can open the More settings and adjust the text size to a custom setting. Decreasing or increasing the text size very slightly can allow you to adjust the way in which the text fits onto the page, especially if there are some minor discrepancies from one exam generation to the next. You may only need to adjust the text size by 1 or 2% to adjust the text size to fit the page more neatly. You can also adjust the margins to a custom size. Drag the margin rulers to change their size. This will also reposition the text onto the page and change the overall appearance. Note that the margins may change as you switch from one printer model to another. You can experiment with the margins to see what effect you get for your printer type. Note that any settings you change on the print preview screen on your browser will be saved on your browser for the next time you use the QBgenerator software. However, because these are browser-specific settings, another administrator working on another computer may have different settings saved to their own computer browser. Beware of this also if you change from one computer to another. This concludes the video on setting the page size for a printed exam.